more are you anticipating before you and your colleagues decide it's time for something else?
Well, this speaker's race ought to be about policy, not personality. And it's a shame that we're even here. 8 Republicans teamed up with 210 Democrats to put us down this path, this chaotic path. They knew, those folks who voted to vacate McCarthy knew that it would take quite some time to settle on a speaker. McCarthy had months, if not years, to build the relationships, to build the trust that it takes to lead the House, to be second in line to the presidency. And right now we're trying to get it done in 14 days. It's obviously not enough time. I'd like to focus on the policies of the next speaker. That's what it would take for me to get there. I'm looking for a reasonable Republican, a common sense conservative, mainly who will keep the government open while accomplishing the commitment to America, while securing the border, while reducing spending. It's important that we continue to do that, to pay our troops while we make that progress. I'm in talks with Representative Jordan about those policy priorities. I've heard some decent things from Mr. Jordan, but we're certainly not there yet. We could go many more rounds without a solid resolution on key policy priorities like keeping the government funded while at the same time cutting spending.
Well, hold on, Congressman. Jim Jordan says he's got an offer you can't refuse as a New York lawmaker to double the SALT deduction, which is something that your constituents are passionate about. Is that enough to bring you into the fold?
Unfortunately, it's not. We already have a bill. Mike Lawler, my colleague from the New York suburbs, has a bill that would simply remove the marriage penalty. We already have all the support that we need for that. That's a pittance. That's not even a bone that's being supposedly thrown at us. You know, I have a bill that would, by the way, it used to be unlimited. One used to, a New Yorker, New Jersey, anybody in the country used to be able to deduct an unlimited amount from their federal taxes they paid in state and local taxes. Now, a couple of years ago, that was reduced to $10,000. Many of my constituents used to deduct $40,000, $50,000, and $60,000. And I'm in the Long Island suburbs. We're not necessarily so rich. We pay a lot of taxes. Our cost of living is extraordinarily high. My constituents rely on that SALT deduction, which was taken from them a number of years ago. It needs to be made right. That offer, and by the way, it hasn't been communicated to us. I haven't talked to Mr. Jordan or anybody from his team about that offer, so I won't even consider it real. But if it did come, I would reject it. It's a pittance. It's not enough. I have a bill that would raise the cap from $10,000 per individual to $60,000 for individuals at $120,000 for married couples. That's what I told Mr. Jordan 10 days ago when we first started discussing policy priorities, what it would take. Wow. And I'm waiting to hear back about what resolution we could have on that.
All right. Well, Congressman, there's not going to be any action on your SALT bill or, frankly, anything else until someone has the Speaker's gavel in hand in a more permanent way than currently McHenry holds it. The Speaker pro tem has the gavel in theory, but not much power to do anything with it. Is it time for that to be extended? How hard will it be to get Republicans to agree with Democrats on that?
Well, you framed it a certain way, and I don't agree with that framing. The Speaker pro tempore, and don't be confused because there's a couple of Latin words in there. It's the temporary Speaker who has every right, duty, and responsibility and authority to act just as a bona fide Speaker will. Just like if there was a vacancy in the office of the presidency, the vice president assumes all the duties, responsibilities, and authorities. That's the same situation we have here. Go ahead.
But given the fact that there seems to be a lack of understanding as this is untested, we haven't actually seen someone in Patrick McHenry's position before, why not just formalize it with a resolution while you sort out ultimately who it's going to be that Speaker?
And listen, that logic may prevail in the House. Somebody may bring a resolution forward asking folks to vote on it. And maybe that's a belts and suspenders sort of scenario. I think it just confuses the issue. To me, there's zero ambiguity. This position, the temporary Speaker position, was specifically contemplated post 9/11 when folks wanted to ensure we had continuity of government in the worst disaster imaginable, terrorist attack or something else that wiped out a number of our leaders in the top echelons of our government. This specific position, the temporary Speaker, was contemplated for a continuity of government. The individual who occupies it can act. And I think 14, 15 days later, about having not a bona fide Speaker, I think our Speaker pro tempore actually should act. It's so urgent. A vote, sure. A vote will probably pass. Enough Republicans and Democrats are fed up with the stalemate of electing a new speaker, but I don't think it's necessary in order for the temporary speaker to act.
You know, I talked to Congressman Seth Moulton earlier today on Bloomberg about this, of course, a Democrat from Massachusetts. Here's what he said about this idea. It looks like Democrats are ready to jump in on this. Let's listen.
Well, certainly something that I would consider. Obviously, the details of the deal matter here. We don't want to just give the reins to someone who's going to run away with all the horses. But I think this is something that's being actively discussed. I discussed it as recently as about 10 minutes ago on the floor of the House, because we need to get the House back to functioning.
Are you willing to have that conversation with a colleague like Seth Moulton, Congressman?
Yeah, but here's the problem. Once Democrats and Republicans start to talk about differences here, everybody's going to want something. One person's going to want another committee spot on rules. The other one's going to want a guarantee on their bill or something else. There's going to be a bunch of silly horse trading that goes on. The temporary speaker can and should act in the absence of the speaker. It's so clear, and this temporary speaker should act. And if somebody wants to challenge that, well, you know what? That's why we have a federal court system. And somebody can bring that to court, and perhaps the Supreme Court will rule logically that the temporary speaker can act in the absence of a bona fide speaker.